Hello everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at the latest implementation of Vertex Color Gradient in TEXTMESH Pro. Now, just in case you're not familiar with the product, TEXTMESH Pro is the ultimate text solution for Unity. Essentially, it's a replacement for all the different text components like GUI text, TEXTMESH, as well as the new text part of Unity 4.6. Now, TEXTMESH Pro features an advanced text rendering system which renders your font always super crisp and sharp at any point size, resolution, or zoom factor. Now, TEXTMESH Pro also includes a bunch of cool features, some of which you're going to see in this demo. So let's get going. So first thing I'm going to do is actually delete this object here and show you how we can add a new TEXTMESH Pro object into a scene. So I've got our canvas here. We're using Unity 4.6 Beta 18, which is the latest version. So I'm going to go to my Create menu here, select UI, and then instead of picking the text component that's part of Unity 4.6, I'm going to pick the TEXTMESH Pro version of it. And voila, we've added the object. Now, since I'm kind of lazy and I don't want to have to retype everything, I'm just going to hit undo and bring back this object right here. Now, let's take a look at this object real quick just to point out a few features. First of all, we can see that we're using markup a color tag to put the word blue here, the word pro in blue, where it's actually superscript, so we can do superscript. The word in is actually smaller than the rest of the text. The T is bigger than E and the other letters, as well as the M. So through markup tags, you can control the layout and the colors of your text. So TEXTMESH Pro features an expanded set of markup tags. So what I'm going to do here is actually disable the gradient, and I'm actually going to reset this material and go back to a plain text. So as a matter of fact, if I was to go here, you can see that I can change the font to go back to whatever normal stuff we had. So this is the plain text. Okay. I'm going to change the font size just to show you again the part where we render great at any point size or any zoom factor. As you can see, the text looks super nice at any size. Let's go back to 36 points. Now that's one advantage that our text rendering system offers. The next one is, what if I wanted to add an outline to this word text as well as a shadow? Well, using a bitmap font, I would have to go and export my font atlas, go in Photoshop, add an outline, save all that stuff, bring it back, and then eventually I would end up having multiple font atlases because I have one, let's say, with an outline and one with an outline and a shadow and so on and so forth. But with TEXTMESH Pro, the way you do this is here I can go to my material properties, and for example, if I wanted an outline, I can just go right here and add an outline. And as you can see, I can control that dynamically. Okay. If I wanted to dilate the font, I can basically dilate it, which makes it thinner or thicker. So here we can do some like cartoony looking stuff, which is kind of nice. Now, what if we wanted to add a shadow? Well, that's pretty simple. We go to Underlay, enable it, and then I can offset my shadow like here and just add some softness to it as well. So now we have a nice drop shadow that is soft with our outline, right? So that's pretty cool. So now how about Vertex Color Gradient? Well, there's different ways you can set up a gradient. With TEXTMESH Pro, right now I'm using the mobile distance field shader, which does not allow me to add a texture on the face of my text. So actually, let me go back to TEXTMESH Pro here. If I was to switch to a different TEXTMESH Pro shader, which is this one here, this one exposes or gives you access to a lot more functionality, like I can add a texture to the face of my text, to the outline. I can even add beveling, different lighting effects, bump mapping. I can even add glow and a bunch of other stuff. So just to show you here the texture, I can add a texture on the face, and now we have the equivalent of a gradient. Now, why are we adding Vertex Color Gradient? Well, in Unity, the way batching works is batching is based on materials. So if I had two TEXTMESH Pro objects, each using the same material, they would batch. But what if I wanted this object and I made a duplicate right here, and I wanted this object to have a different gradient? Then I would basically use a different texture, but if I was to do so, we would end up with two draw calls because we now have two separate materials. So using vertex colors allows us to get around that. because vertex colors are unique per vertex as opposed to the material being shared between the objects. So if I go to this object down here and enable vertex gradient like so, and then I go back to this one up here, enable it as well. Now since it's a copy, it's the same one, but I can come here and change, oops, let me not click randomly on buttons, which would be nice, and go back up here and add, let's say, some red, and you can see now that the gradient on the top object is independent of the bottom object. And still, because they share the same material, we would get one draw call for the two, but we can have a distinctive different gradient. Now let's get rid of the top object again and show you another cool little feature. So in implementing the color gradient or vertex color gradient, I decided to also make sure it was going to work with Unity's animation component. So what I've got here, if we look at the bottom, we have an animator, and I basically just selected this and animated over time. So if I was to actually go in play mode, you can see that we're animating the gradients independently of each other on the object over a certain amount of time. So that's what I wanted to show, which is how with TEXTMESH Pro we can now add vertex color gradient. We can animate the top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, and we can have multiple objects with different gradients, and all of them would batch into one single draw call. So thank you for watching. Should you have any comments or questions, please feel free to post or go to the TEXTMESH Pro threads on the Unity forums. There's one in the work in progress and there's one in the asset store threads. Again, I'd love to get your feedback. Thank you for watching.